So now that we got the shocks out of the truck, I wanted to answer a couple of questions we get all the time. One of those is, why would I buy a King over Fox, King, Icon, whatever? The truth is, it comes down to the end user and what you guys want. We're not here to tell you which one's better, which one's the best, or whatever. That's not our place to do that. However, I do want to go over some of the differences to show between, for example, the extended travel King versus our extended travel coilovers, and kind of just hit those differences so you guys can see those. First off, we'll start with the rear shocks. So we have a little bit lower of a mounting position for the reservoir applications. That way you can actually reach the reservoirs a little bit easier, less of a chance of contact, as you can see on some of this, like the adjuster and the cap has touched the truck. We also have a steel body shock, which steel body shocks are zinc coated, so they will last a while as far as corrosion resistance is concerned, but after a while the zinc coating does wear off and you start to see pockets of rust. And so like in this case, you can see it has a little rust, a little bit of wear. It will eventually rust probably further, but this is a SoCal truck, so it's not really that detrimental. It is just surface rust, not corrosive rust, so it's not something you have to worry about. As far as that, since we also include dust boots, whereas these ones do not, our cap for the nitrogen is hidden under a machine cap for our resis versus this is an open fitting on the nipple. Nothing wrong with the application. It's got a screw cap on it so it protects the threads. Ours I just thinks a little more discreet and kind of fits the design a little bit better. The other thing to notice as well is the rod end on these. It's just a threaded rod end, and then ours is a little more robust rod end. Just kind of fits in line with some of the designs that we offer. So they're both adjustable. The biggest thing as well to mention is that these are single speed adjustments, so you do have your one high speed compression knob, whereas our rear shocks are dual speed compression, so you have high speed and you have low speed. That comes into play if you're doing like an overland build or even really anything. You can dial in the ride based off of what you want the truck to do. You can control the movement a little bit better, both doing high and low speed applications. So rock crawling, high speed desert, and everything in between. So really the adjustment ends on the end user for you guys to just do whatever you want to do with the truck. I don't know if I mentioned before, but our shocks are all aluminum. They're hard anodized, so you won't see any kind of rust or corrosion from our stuff. They do dissipate heat a little bit better than a steel shock does, but you'd have to be really rolling for a long time to notice those benefits. Now into the front, a couple things that we do differently than a lot of the brands is you notice, first and foremost, our reservoir hoses are quite a lot shorter. The reason for that is less path of travel, and also most of the control arms, or most of the shocks these days run the hose underneath the control arm and loop it back around to the top of the reservoir. Ours, like the shock behind me, mounts directly. Everything's above the control arm. Everything's kind of nice and compact and just easy. In my opinion, I think that looks cleaner than having a longer hose, but either way, it still operates the same way. We have dual speed compression versus the single speed compression. And on this shock, as you can see, this one is a little more worse for wear. Admittedly, Joel doesn't take care of his stuff, so I did clean this up a little bit to just showcase like how it still looks even after being on here for 3 years, and all things considered, is very good. You know, some pockets of rust here, same thing, steel body shock, so you'll deal with a little more corrosion. Some of the exposed steel parts have some surface rust. Nothing detrimental, shock still operates. These ones have leaked a while ago. Again, Joel hasn't done any kind of maintenance, so these were due for a rebuild, if I were to guess, probably a year ago, if not longer. They include your reservoir brackets, and they use worm gear clamps for those as well. Another difference that we offer is, as you can see on this shock, we have our aluminum clamps. They are actually threaded and mounted to the top mount, so it's nothing that can ever break or corrode or fall off. Some of the worm gear clamps tend to, after a while, these can break. You can over tighten them and stress the metal and break that as well. So that's one thing that we avoid. And then again, aluminum shock, hard anodizing, dual speed compression, single speed compression, steel shock. So those are a lot of the differences. When it comes to the valving, King's valving is kind of across the board for most mid-size trucks. We did a lot of testing on our stuff to be on the vehicle specifically. So we use, in fact, our second gen ZR2 for the entirety of the testing on and off-road to make sure that it was made for that specific truck. This shares no valving similarities to like the third gen, for example, which have their own tune and valve. So they're both rebuildable. They're both readily available to have any rebuild serviced. They both will last most of the life of the vehicle. And those are some of the key differences, and obviously some of the pricing, you know, we want to compare the two of them. But it's up to you guys to decide what you want to do with your vehicles, but we just wanted to show you and answer that question of why we do things differently and what are the differences between us and King. So hope you enjoy.